please join me in welcoming, along with her daughter, Peta, Ani DiFranco.
Hello, hello, thanks. All right. The mothership. Pretty cool. Oh, what's happening to me? Technical difficulties. Oh, we'll just leave it like that. Okay. You want to sing a tune? This is not from my latest record. This is just a song that Peta and I like to sing together. Are you facing east or west or north or south? When it gets cold outside, do you get brought in or do you get left out? You in the shade of something bigger? Are you right out in the sun? Are you down there in the trenches or at the top of a mountain? Either way, you better take your lemons, make your lemonade, have your rainy parade. You felt the longing in a seed? Have you felt it swimming in its need? Pushing through into the light? Then you know what I'm saying when I'm saying it's gonna be alright. You just gotta take your lemons, make your lemonade, have your rainy parade. Listen to the beating of the drum. Look at the smiles on everyone. Who says it's better to be dry? The mighty oak trees are so happy right now they could cry. So you just gotta take your lemons, make your lemonade, have your rainy parade. Have your rainy parade. Have your rainy parade. Have your rainy parade. Thank you. Never play a guitar twice. They get dirty. So that was what I was thinking when we were singing that song, that second verse. Have you felt the longing in a seed? That's you. You're the seed that I was writing about. And now you're here singing with me. And this is a song that I wrote for Peta's daddy. Long after the seal is broken, seen you stumble, I seen you choking. I think I love you even more. After someone went and sat on my rose-colored glasses, I think I love you even more. Can you hold on to your passion now that we both got tired asses? I think I love you even more. Oh boy, come here, bring me back to when we were slipping through the cracks. I think I love you even more. Even more, 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 even more. Sail sneak backwards, hell-bent from the baby to the placenta. I think I love you even more. Retroactive DNA, what's attractive? Who could say? I think I love you even more. Stars align and then they fuse, higher highs, blue blues. I think I love you even more. Come here, bring me back to when we were slipping through the cracks. I think I love you even more. Even more, 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 even more. Long after the seal is broken, seen me stumble, you seen me choking. You think you could love me even more. After someone went and sat on your rose-colored glasses, you think you could love me even more. Can you hold on to your passion now that we both got tired asses? Could you love me even more? Bring me back to when we were slipping through the cracks. I think I love you even more. Even more, 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 even more. All right, thank you.
Please, another round of applause. Ani DiFranco, Peta DiFranco. Well, I want to thank you so much. Thank you for the beautiful performance, and thank you for taking the time to come and visit with us here in New York. I know you have a lifelong history in here in New York, but having relocated, you've been spending a lot of time back up here. You were up here a few months ago to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, one of those. That's always good. Now I can die.
It was really the award of a lifetime is what I'm understanding from your reaction.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I love coming back to New York. I do. I used to miss it like a person after I left. And now I just like to visit. Like we were talking all morning off mic, so now we get to talk into mics. But yeah, now the whole pace of New York and just the circus of it, I'm like, wow, cool, gotta go.
Well, and you're here now for kind of a wild event, supporting Cyndi Lauper and the True Colors Foundation. Is that?
Yeah. Benefit to help an organization that tries to get homeless queer youth a place to be and people to support them. Yeah.
It brings me to the first topic that I wanted to discuss with you, which is all of these things speak to a career of proactivity. looking back through through the years, you have always been at the pointed end of the proactive stick. And I find that interesting in the fact that a lot of artists are very reactive. An event would take place and there's a response to it or a tribute to some tragedy or some sort of reaction based. And I'm curious if you can speak about what it's been like to always be in that proactive space instead of just a simple reactive space.
Wow, I dig it. I dig the whole pointed end of the stick. I mean, geez. I mean, I guess like anybody, I've just been trying to speak my truth, my experience, my thoughts, my dreams, my perception in my songs, in my writing, and I guess personally, I'm always compelled by art that takes risks, So I've always kind of pushed myself. It used to be really hard to be that in the beginning. I used to, oh, geez, who's going to be at this show tonight? No, my mom, or, and what will happen when I say this, or, what. And a lot happens, when you're like jabbing at stuff. And, but I would say that the most important thing that happened over the years was that people came out of nowhere and said, me too, or thank you, oh my God. And all of that, like hearing people repeatedly say, I can't believe you just said that, thank you, just meant so much more than all the rest. So it's kind of encouraged me to just let it go, all those ideas of what's private or personal or inappropriate or this or that or the other. It's like it's all universal. None of it's unique.
It's curious that you said it used to be more difficult for you, because I would almost think that now is a time period of difficulty for anyone being proactive. There's so much tension and so much pushback to any push that is there. Does that weigh in at all when you're about to step up and make a bold statement of, like you said before, it was the idea of, oh, my mom's in the audience, I don't want to run afoul of that, but now some fraction of the world might be
others in the audience that are even more dangerous than mothers. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was really good to just come out of the box with my mouth and spirit open and just start. I mean, when I was a teenager and I started making my own songs, I started pushing against that wall of acceptability and what you can and cannot say and can and cannot be. And really early on, I just was like, F it. Just what's going to happen to me? Let's find out, And 25, whatever it's been, 30 years later, I'm in a great position now. People know, I weeded out the riffraff a long time ago. People... I think it's much more difficult if you have a secret to let it go. If you've never had secrets, it's easier, it's better. People used to ask me about coming out or this or that. It's like I was not in anywhere. So, and I think that from my experience is better. It's easier to do it that way. I had a young lady opening up my shows recently who's had some success with a song online, and she was a lovely, lovely young gal, and she's sort of just embarking on a career in music. And she was saying, oh, we were talking after one night, and she said, I'm pro-choice, but I'm so afraid, I come from a traditional family, I this and I that. And I said, just say it. Just say it. The sooner you say it, the better. Say who you are, what you believe, what you think, because from there it gets easier every day.
I'm going to change my plan now that you brought this up, because this idea of just saying it, I wanted to speak later in the conversation about the idea of directness and metaphor, but we sort of skipped ahead to that. In your music, there's use of metaphor, but where you really get masterful is with just direct statements. Like you said, of just taking it head on and tackling it that way. And I'm curious if you can talk about the choices of when you want to say something in a very direct fashion, or when you reach a little deeper for metaphor to try and mask an idea or bow an idea.
Embellish, yeah, right. I guess always had maybe just such a burning. Every time I see an Eastern medicine practitioner, they say, "Oh, your spleen. Whoa, with the spleen." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. You should see my 20 records. Spleen music." And it's just, I have such an urgent need to, I don't know, beat back lies and silences. That often it drives me to just say it. I think that's just, where my music is coming from. Sometimes I'm interested in how could you say it without saying it, or how could you say, but oftentimes the direct route is what is most appealing to me. I used to get a lot of flack for it, like we were talking about, a lot of resistance, a lot of pushback. When you were forming your question, I was remembering the first time I went to Italy to play. We were talking earlier about touring in Europe. And this was, first time I went to Italy was probably 20 years ago, and it was in an age of flack, that I was living in. And I remember the first interview I did in Italy, and the dude was like, "So many artists, they say it, but they don't say it. They say it a little metaphor. They hint it. You just say it." And I was like, "That's good? You're saying that's good?" I'd never heard a positive response to that before. I just remember that so clearly, that moment of maybe somebody thinks that's good.
Well, and it's curious with the things that you've chosen to talk about, and we spoke a little bit about this before, as you said, but I was immediately, in preparing for this conversation, just went through the entire catalog again of flashing back. And
bless your heart. Live to tell the tale.
I'm a fan. But a couple of things that caught with me were this directness, and I mentioned before a song like "Gratitude." And recently, of course, Me Too has found a life online, and this sort of understanding of women not being alone in these situations, and men as well, in fact. Yeah. But I immediately went back to, early 90s when Gratitude spoke exactly to that topic. And, another example would be like To the Teeth. This is something that is decades old at this point, but is still modern day prescient. When something happens in the world that you have spoken or have tackled directly on that flashes you back 10 years, 20 years into your career, how does that land for you? How do you process something like Me Too in light of the fact that 20 years ago you were standing up shouting exactly these words?
Yeah, sometimes it's a little heart-sickening. To the Teeth that you mentioned is a song about gun violence. A song I wrote, pushing 20 years ago, when I thought it was completely out of hand. So to pull that song out now and play it is, kind of devastating. It just, but things do change. And often you think this is just the way it is. We just have to accept this is the way it is. And then overnight, it's not. And this Me Too moment that we're in, I think it really speaks to how much the dominant culture sees women now compared to when I was writing that song, even. The fact that we're hearing women give voice to their experience as though it matters, because they're becoming human in the dominant culture. And now we have to accommodate that experience and those people and those voices and those stories. You know, it's one more voice in the chorus, one more person with a seat at the table, you know, and that's incredible. I've seen a lot change. You know, I've seen the work of feminism take hold around me, you know, from when I was first stomping around saying stuff in my songs. I've actually, on that tip, you know, I've never felt a more receptive world around me for a lot of my feminist ideas, you know. So I actually am very hopeful right now. You know, I know it's a time of great peril, and I don't mean to underplay that, and a time of great pain for a lot of people, but I think that the possibilities, I think it's a transformative moment we're in, especially around gender politics.
And there's more of that on the new album, Binary, which, by the way, in addition to this incredibly proactive career, it's also an incredibly prolific career. In the fact that I read somewhere that it's the 20th studio album, and I read somewhere else that it was more than 20. 20 albums?
20, yeah, I know, what the hell.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's at least 20. There's 20 of those suckers. Yeah. I don't know, a lot of songs. Kids changed the game, though. I've slowed right down.
but not for lack of just still creating amazing artwork. There's a great album here, and more stuff speaking to what we were talking about. Immediately, "Play God" jumps to mind. Maybe you could talk about that song and how you know, the nexus and genesis of all that.
Absolutely, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I started writing that song as kind of a bragging. I was like, what if I was like, you know, cross between Howlin' Wolf and Missy Elliott? What would I write right now, you know? And I started, you know, talking about my life as an emancipated teenager. You know, I was on my own at 15 and, you know, never got nothing from nobody kind of, you know, and then the spleen took over and something inside me just felt, as I was writing this bragging verse about how I'm not a child, and even when I was a child, I didn't get a chance to be a child, and I was I was contributing in society. I was a part of society real early on. And then, you know, my brain just sort of flicked to that and so you cannot treat me like a child, you know? You tell me what I can and cannot do with my body, when I should reproduce, when you know, if I must reproduce, or, you know, this is the kind of way that women still, you know, are treated in society is as though they are inferior, as though they are children, you know. So I think of reproductive freedom as a civil right, you know. I think that we need to talk about it that way, address it that way. I think we could use another constitutional amendment to guarantee women civil rights. So the song just sort of mutated into a women's civil rights anthem.
There's a lot of, I mean, it speaks to the title of the album, Binary. There's a lot of dual meaning, and I find that interesting in that story started in one place and ended in another. Talk about the concept of the entirety of the album and being binary and what that means, where that's coming from.
Yeah. Sure. Here at Google. I mean, binary to me, first of all, I'm not really talking about either or. I'm talking about both always. You know, I had a run-in with the internet a few years ago. It came and found me in my house and bit my head off and chewed on it for a while. And, you know, I had a run-in with the internet a few years ago. It came and found me in my house and bit my head off and chewed on it for a while. And, you know, I had a run-in with the internet a few years ago. It came and found me in my house and bit my head off and chewed on it for a while. And that was sort of the beginning of a lot of meditations on consciousness for me. Oddly, you know, these ones and zeros came and changed my life and hurt me bad. And I started to look at the whole world as made of relationship, basically. That anything that looks to be a singularity is really a relationship. Everything is two things spinning, you know, from our atomic structure, you know, to the planets and the stars. There is this fundamental design, I think, that is made of relationship, you know, and I'm fascinated by quantum physics. I don't understand it, of course, but I like to read about it. And, you know, quantum physicists, I think, through a long trajectory of masculine science, have come back around to sort of the reality of the mother, that nothing exists on its own. Only in relationship do we, you know, I mean, there's an infinite field of possibilities until something is observed. And they will go on to tell you that observing something affects it, that observing is interacting. So with interaction comes existence. You know, I guess that's basically, and of course it's, you know, it's not disconnected with my feminism, and I think that kind of the ways that my brain has been spinning for the past few years kind of weaves through this record. So that's why I took that song title to title the whole record.
Well, and it goes even further than that, because this is a very interactive record for you, I think, in the creation, right? There's a lot of collaboration on this record, and even on the technical side, more collaboration than I think you've done in the past. Yeah. How was the process of making Binary different or familiar or unfamiliar or taking a risk?
Yeah, well, often I make records by myself. I crawl into a hole, depending on what's happening in my life, and make a little record, or you know, I track the songs with my band, but then I futz on my own and finish it, or something solitary. The record right before this, I did a lot in the wee hours, you know, when the kids were sleeping in headphones. And this time, you know, my youngest is 4, and you know, I needed to re-enter the world and interact with adults and creative beings and people who would bring ideas to the table other than me. So I track the tunes with not just my core band, rhythm section, but a few other musicians that I love. Ivan Neville in New Orleans, where I live, and Jenny Scheinman, a beautiful violinist from out west. And then I just started calling up a lot of other brilliant friends that I have. I just didn't want to be alone. I wanted community back in my life. So there's a lot of beautiful players, and I had this kind of experience of like the best Christmas ever again and again, where, you know, I send Justin Vernon a track, and then my present comes in the mail, bing, you know, and I get to open it up and see this beautiful chorus that he sang on my song, or it's just the most wonderful presents came back to me from my friends. And then I even went one step further than I've ever gone, which is to have somebody else mix the damn thing. I've always just, I can do this. Oh, okay, that sounds good, right? You know? You know, so my records over the years are unique, you know, and expressive, you know, but, you know, having brought a creative mind like Chad Blake into this project to mix it remotely. Once again, I just sent him raw tracks and I got back mixes, was breathtaking for me. I was like, oh, wow, what if you're not crazy and you didn't just write the songs, and so, you know, and you came in with an objectivity and a skill that I will never achieve in mixing.
Different perspective.
What a gift. Wow, you can really do things in the mixing, as it turns out, you know. So I don't think I'll ever go back to. But I've been thinking about it lately. The emancipated minor thing, when you're just, I got this, and you're just taking care of everything. Now I'm 47 and I'm like, I don't have to do that anymore. It took me a while to let go.
It's interesting. It also, I found that in listening to the record, it's super broad in style and approach. And there's some stuff on here that is very classic Ani DiFranco style. There are other tracks on here that are nearly hip-hop songs.
Hey.
And then, like, Spider is kind of this other end of that spectrum in a very indie rock kind of way. Where did the diversity come from this album? Was it out of this collaboration, or were there trigger moments that were like, hey, I'm going to go in this direction for a reason? I'm wondering if you can speak to that.
Yeah, I like, and I've been hearing it from others, that the sort of diversity of the sounds on this record, and I think that has to do with Chad and with the people that I worked with, the musicians, helping me translate my songs and fully, helping me manifest them fully. I think that I've always written really in a diverse way. I never kind of want to write the same song twice, so I'm always, let me write a song standing on my head, with a bucket on each foot, and see what that turns out like. And so I've done that all, but then, I think then I just play it like I always do on whatever's sitting around, and then I just sort of mix it so you can hear everything. But I think when other people come in and enhance the creativity that exists in the in the seed of a song, and they say, well, this sounds to me like we should go over here, and look, I have an arc, we can go over there, and so I think that these songs were more fully realized in their differences than maybe on other records.
Well, I'm happy to hear it, because it does take a lot of the music in a new place. And speaking of the new place, you spoke of a little bit of the internet coming to bite you a few years ago. Skipping past that, I know that for Binary, there are some videos, and we were speaking about it before. These were things that you had sort of independently done. I'm wondering if you could talk about what it's like to be, as we'd said before, sort of an old school artist approaching that way and being thrust into this situation to where maybe now just an album's not enough.
Yeah, that seems to be true. I think I'm just a folk singer, I'm a working musician, and playing live for people, just gathering with people. I think the sort of fundamental reality of music as a social act is really how I feel it, and that's what inspires me. And so I think I'm most inspired on stage. Spending an hour and a half, 2 hours with people, and the kind of connections that you make, and the kind of less alone that we all feel when we walk out of there, and the kind of, that is what I live for. And the rest of it, I don't know. It's all changed around me, and I'd be the last to really know. I think at this one point in the 90s, people were like, Ani, how do you do it? Show us how it's done. And I'm so far from being that guy anymore. I'm an old lady, and I have no idea how you utilize the technology and the media and, to have a career in music in the 21st century. I just know that I like to play for people live. And if I can just do that and pay my rent till I'm dead, I'll be okay.
Well, and you were saying before that you felt very flattered by your audiences enjoying that moment with you and participating in that moment with you. I think it's very common for people to go to shows, and the first thing that happens is the phone comes out.
Yeah, right. We were talking earlier this morning, and I was telling Matthew I have noticed this last couple of months being on the road, no phones in the audience, almost no phones, which is noticeable. I feel like my audience were sort of the last of the to live, the show through the phone, and when it came into the space of my shows, I just was like, oh, I guess this is the world now. There's nowhere to go, that this is not the world. So, yeah, all right. And then these last few months, I got the feeling like people have had enough. They've had enough. It's like, I want an hour and a half of being in a place and a time with the people that I'm with. And it was like, look at you guys. There hasn't been one glowing blue face tonight. Congratulations, we're all here.
Maybe the escapism that the phone initially served is found again in putting the phone away and actually being a part of the experience.
Yeah, well, we got deep. You guys missed the whole conversation that meant anything. Because what's going on in new music, and who are the groundbreaking young artists of today? And I, of course, PETA will teach me everything I need to know eventually about that. But we were wondering together if this absorption into the gizmos, this endless distraction and entertainment, has prevented a generation or two of groundbreaking music. You are not bored, you are not desperate for connection, so you don't have to go into your garage and invent some convoluted way to connect. You just But we concluded this morning, or at least we left off with, well, maybe we're moving past the endless days of absorption. Maybe that in itself is becoming boring for young people. So maybe that next awesome band or artist or what is right around the corner now.
Well, the speaking of next is a good stepping off point. So I will say that those of you who have questions in the audience, if you guys want to make your way to a microphone, I encourage you to do that.
Ooh, a spotlight right by the mic there. Nice.
But before we get into that, I would like to talk a little bit about next. I know that next year has a lot of interesting things queued up. Specifically, I think Babe Fest is coming to New York.
Yeah, possibly. That's the big idea. Babe Fest in Central Park.
Well, that would be
I know.
fantastic.
I hope. Yeah.
Anybody who has any contacts with the Summer Stage people at
yeah,
Central Park,
really. Put in a good
start
word
pulling your
for
strings now. But what else is coming up for 2018?
A book.
A book?
A book.
What kind of book?
Complete sentences. Spelled all correctly.
Like
I'm writing a book. I'm trying to write a book, and
are we talking narrative fiction?
yeah.
Or
We're talking memoir.
Oh.
But of course, it's all made up, right? We all, we're all just making up the story. But it's an idea that I've floated for years. Back when I was, the groundbreaking indie girl. The concept was more like part manual, part memoir. This is what happened. Here's some tips on how. Of course, that moment is long past, and I'm just writing stories in a different format. It's totally different from songs and poems. It's crazy to me that it's all called writing because it just feels so different in its process, but. I don't know. I just looking for challenges, I guess, as a writer. So that's what I'm up to.
Well, when you finish, you'll have to come back, and we'll do this all again and talk about the book.
Okay, cool.
Let's take a question from the audience.
Hi, I had a bunch of questions, but when I saw you sing with PETA, I flashed back to 20 years ago in my hometown, seeing the late, great Chris Whitley perform with his daughter, Trixie, on stage, probably around the same age as PETA. And so I'm kind of curious if you could talk a little bit more about the dynamics of family and music, who's nudging who to perform together on stage, how does that decision get made, how do you draw a line balancing exposing her to the public on a stage to photos versus helping her find her own voice and her art and her craft for a better music future?
Yeah, cool. Well, I guess first of all, I start with she I start with her, what she wants. She's been touring with me a lot. When she was a kid, she was a road baby till 3.5, and so she's pro at the touring business. And at some point, more recently, she started saying, "Mommy, I want to come sing on that song or that." Okay, all right. Don't push them on stage, but say yes if that's what they choose. And it's, sorry, Peter, that we're talking about you, but it made all the difference for me as a working musician mom, because music was my first baby, and the subsequent babies that have arms and legs, they're not well for the guitar. I mean, they could be playing happily if I pick up the guitar and try to do my thing, they shut me down. No drifting off, Mommy, into your world. Me. It's about me now. And so that was hard as an artist, The little guy, I have a 4-year-old son, and he's the same way now. But as soon as PETA decided, I want to be a part of that, then it became our thing. It was not my thing anymore. And it changed the whole atmosphere around music, which is just thrilling to me. I mean, I love to sing, but I love to sing with my daughter even more, So, yeah, now that we can make it something we do together, it's opened up a whole new era for us.
Thank you for your question. Let's take one from this side.
Excellent. Hello. Hi. First off, thank you so much for coming. I truly believe you are one of the greatest poets of our time. And I don't actually have a question. This is a statement. I'm going to embarrass myself. I apologize. I was one of those kids. I grew up in rural Michigan. I was the G in LGBT. I didn't have anyone to talk to, and your music got me through. And I would not be here today without you. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, man.
And I'm going to get off because I'm probably going to...
Yeah, I'm going to cry with you. Yes, yay to realness and being your whole authentic self. Thank you for that moment of vulnerability. Yeah, I hear that a lot, and it keeps me going through the hard moments. That means the world to me.
Let's take another question.
From me to you. Thank you as well. But I want to kind of know about how you feel about your brand. From an external standpoint, I kind of see you have this personal brand. As I've been in this side of you all of these years, you now have a business brand. You have this cultural brand as well. And you also now, I'm hearing, you have this other thing, this mommyhood, that might prevent either the evolution of or the building or separation of another brand. What does your brand mean to you? And can you share your thoughts of that over time?
Yeah, sure. Let me see. I think what I tend to do is not think about it. When you were talking about the elements in your question, I was thinking about a story. I hear so many wonderful stories from people who have intersected my music or my brand even. I heard a story, and I get these letters and that are just like food for me, that nourish me back. And I got a letter a little while ago from a mom who is a fan of my work, and she had a Righteous Babe sweatshirt, with the logo. And her young daughter said to her, "Mommy, is that a girl or a boy?" Striking this muscle man pose, but with a skirt, the little logo that started off as a picture of me hamming it up. I hate cameras, so I'm going to do something ridiculous. And then that became the logo, and that became the brand, Righteous Babe. And so here's a little girl who I don't know talking to her mom who's found something in my music. "Mommy, is that a girl or a boy?" "That's a girl, sweetie." And then the little girl said, "Is she so strong?" And her mom said, yeah, she's so strong. And she, you know, and this is all in the letter. And then she said there was a pause. And her 5-year-old said, I want to be like that. And I thought, whoa, a logo. I don't think that that's going to inspire me to think about it, or how can I tweak the logo, or how can we work the brand to make more value for... I just try to do what I do and be who I am and write the best song I can be and give it in the most honest way I can in whatever moment, and hope that these peripheral things like, you know, the idea of Righteous Babe Records and the look of that logo, and will do their own work around that. You know, if I just stay focused on what I know and what I'm good at, that, you know, those peripheral things like the Righteous Babe brand, I mean, we are trying to put a festival together, and maybe I have been inspired by my new team to contemplate it more, to try to reinvent Righteous Babe, and what does it mean to stand at the intersection of art and politics, and who else can we help or invite in, or what other communities can we help to bring closer together, to make stronger through a festival, through a branded festival, you know. So I try to work with people who do understand such things and can, you know, build momentum around them. But for me, I just try to, you know, focus on being an artist and a mom.
Well, and it's curious. I'm going to follow up on her question if I can, because the label came out as a function of need, right? You created it not to, hey, we're going to make a ton of money by releasing albums, but because you needed a way to get your music out. And I think what I have noticed is even with other artists on the label, it's not out of, hey, we're going to put this out and make a ton of money off of it, but it seems to come from, this music deserves it. And I wonder if that functionality speaks to what you were saying as far as not having to worry about developing the brand, just doing what needs to get done.
Yeah, it's one of the great ironies of my existence, if you're me, is this label entrepreneur that has followed my name for 30 years. And it's so not the point. It's like so far from the point that it used to really bug me, you know? I mean, of all the things that, you know, songwriter, activist, some entrepreneur? Huh. You know, okay, right, I guess I started a record company. But the whole point was really to avoid the music business. You know, the whole point was, can you just make music your job without having to, you know, get in bed with business people, bottom line oriented people. Not that the music industry is full of bad people, they're good people. It just, I think I was such an idealistic kid that it's sort of, I looked at, you know, the intersection of sort of business and corporate culture and art, and I see commodification. I see everything beautiful and vital come out of the underground, get commodified and die, you know, and I thought, I don't want to be a part of that process, even if it serves me, you know. I find that to be such a bummer. How else could it be done? You know, so the point was really just for me to just follow my teachers, you know, the people that really made my world bigger and less about myself, instead of, you know, you should wear this and play this song and make this happen and here's how to, you know, it's just like, I don't want to think about that. I want to think about something meaningful, you know. So, yeah, I guess it was just like it was a problem-solving process. It was never about running a record company, but about how can I dedicate as little energy in that direction as possible.
We are running close to time, so if you guys have a couple more questions, we'll take them, please.
Hello. All right, so that actually dovetailed perfectly with my question, because I'm curious. You said you set up the record label not out of a joy of wanting to be a business owner, but just to, improve your direct connection with the audience and be able to get your music to more people. And I'm curious if, like, now, speaking of the ones and zeros, do you feel like that's still working, or do you feel like you're sort of inevitably in an embrace with Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, Google Play Music, whoever? And if you were a young artist starting out right now, would you try to leverage those, or would you still try and do the whole thing yourself?
I mean, there's so much to know and navigate now, to have a career in music. And I certainly don't think I'm a voice of authority or knowing necessarily. My basic approach is to just let go, to just let go, to as the music business and the world of, changed around me, like, let go of the old. And is music free now? And can musicians have a job of music if it's just free and you can't commodify it at all? Or how do you, and the little guy is struggling so much, and people have asked me what I make about these streaming, and these. And for me, I think, I just have this sort of really basic, primal approach, which is acceptance. I can't control how people get their music. I just let it all happen. And I hope that and I have found through this just sort of ignorant but faithful approach of, I'm going to apply as much consciousness as I can through my work and hope that comes back at me from the universe, hope that the universe has a place for me in my art. It has found a place for me, so I'm one of the lucky ones. I mean, maybe it's easy for me to speak in such trite terms because the universe has held me, and I'm very lucky. But I think that when you are in the groove, when you're in the flow of yourself, of whoever you are and whatever you have to offer, there is a place in the universe for it, So to calculate what obstacles, change the flow or guide it or I don't worry about that. I just worry, am I being true to myself? Am I giving what I have to give? Am I listening to, the voices that guide me? And so far, it's worked out. Yeah, I don't know if that's an answer, but
it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your time to come here and be with us today. I want to thank you for your thoughtfulness in this conversation. It's really been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you.
And I hope that everyone else would join me in thanking you as well. Thank you very much. We are running close to time, but I'm wondering if you would do us the honor. Would you mind performing another song?
Yeah, we'll play one more.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Let me see if I can. Where's Peter? You want to sing? Yeah, here we go. So, yeah. So this is that song, Play God, that we were talking about. Intergenerational feminism. I was done at 16, showing up for class. I was out there in the ring, learning how to kick some ass. I was done at 16, using my mama's key. It was all on me, yeah, it was all on me. Weren't no free rides were no IOUs. I pulled my weight, yeah, I paid my dues. And I showed up to enlist on the first day of recruits. How about you? How about you? And I'm my brother's keeper every chance I can. And I pay my taxes like any working man. And I feel I've earned my right to choose. You don't get to play God, man, I do. You don't get to play God, man, I do. You get to run the world in your special way. You get much more than you say. Government, religion, it's all just patriarchy. I must insist you leave this one thing to be. Oh, oh, yes, one thing to be. Oh, oh, yeah, one thing to be. Oh, oh, yes, leave this one thing. 'Cause there's one thing that a man needs to be truly free. This is the modern world, and that one thing is money. But there are two things that a woman needs: control over her own body. Yes, I pay the price on top of everything. Each month a bill, each month a reckoning. And each seed that dies, I cry and I bleed. So you can't tell me now, you can't tell me. You can't tell me now, you can't tell me. I am a soldier, it's my blood that flows. I'd give my life so that this tree can grow. You don't know creation like I know. So you can't tell me now, you can't tell me. You can't tell me now, you can't tell me. You get to run the world in your special way. You get much more than you say. Government, religion, it's all just patriarchy. I must insist you leave this one thing to be. Oh, oh, yes, one thing to be. Oh, oh, yeah, one thing to be. Yes, leave this one thing. 'Cause I'm my brother's keeper every chance I can. And I pay my taxes like any working man. And I feel I've earned my right to choose. You don't get to play God, man, I do. You don't get to play God, man, I do. You don't get to play God, man, I do.
Please keep the applause going. Ani DiFranco, Peter DiFranco, thank you both very much.